On May 10, 1996, at 2:30 in the afternoon, Rob Hall sits at 28,700 feet on Everest's south summit, making a phone call. His oxygen is running out. Winds are hitting 70 miles per hour. His client Doug Hansen lies dying just meters away. Hall's team is begging him to descend. He has maybe 90 minutes before darkness kills them both. But Hall refuses to move. Why? Because Hansen paid $65,000 for this summit, and Hall had promised him the top. That decision, to wait at the death zone for a client who could not continue, would cost both men their lives and spark the deadliest day in Everest history. Today we are looking at 3 deaths on Everest, where the victims made choices so catastrophically wrong, they rewrote the rules for everyone who came after. Let me take you to May 23, 2019. The temperature at Everest summit was minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit, with winds of 50 miles per hour. But that is not what killed people that day. What killed them was the line. Picture this. 320 climbers were attempting to summit on the same morning. At the Hillary Step, just 300 vertical feet below the summit, they created a human traffic jam at 28,800 feet. The queue stretched for hours. Among them was Ravi Kumar, a 28-year-old Indian climber. Kumar reached the back of this line at 11 a.m. His supplemental oxygen tank held enough for maybe 6 more hours. His Sherpa guide Lakpa told him they needed to turn around. The math was simple and brutal. If they waited in this line for 3 hours to reach the summit, they would run out of oxygen on the descent. At that altitude, without oxygen, you have about 20 minutes before your brain starts shutting down. Kumar refused. He had climbed for 47 days. He had spent $45,000. The summit was right there, just 300 feet up that rope line. He could see other climbers standing at the top, taking photos. Lakpa pleaded with him for 20 minutes. Then Kumar did something that sealed his fate. He told Lakpa to go down without him. He said he would summit alone and catch up. Think about that decision. At 28,800 feet, where each breath gives you maybe 30% of the oxygen your body needs, and where cognitive function is already impaired by hypoxia, Kumar chose to separate from the one person trained to save his life. At 2:15 p.m., Kumar reached the summit. He had been in the death zone for nearly 14 hours. He took exactly 3 photos with his camera. The timestamps show 2:16 p.m., 2:17 p.m., and 2:18 p.m. Then he started down. At 3:30 p.m., his oxygen ran out at 28,200 feet. Another climber, Sarap Jangbu Sherpa, found Kumar sitting in the snow. His hands were bare because he had removed his gloves to take those summit photos. Jangbu tried to give Kumar his own oxygen, but Kumar waved him off. He was too hypoxic to understand he was dying. Jangbu later told reporters from the Himalayan Times that Kumar said he was fine and that he just needed to rest. His words made no sense. He kept repeating the word summit while pointing up. Here is the part that makes this a Darwin Award contender. The overcrowding on Everest in 2019 was not a secret. The Nepalese government had issued 381 permits that season, a record number. Every climbing company knew the summit window would be packed. The forecast showed only 3 good weather days. Kumar knew all this. He had been at base camp for 6 weeks, hearing the worried discussions among expedition leaders, and he had a choice. He could have turned around at 11 a.m. with Lakpa and tried again the next day with fewer crowds. Instead, he chose 3 photos over his life. Kumar's body was found the next morning at 28,150 feet, frozen in a sitting position, his camera still in his lap. The memory card showed those 3 summit photos. The final image was slightly blurred because his hands were already too cold to hold the camera steady. 11 people died on Everest that May. The media blamed the traffic jam, the permit system, and the Nepalese government. But Kumar had something most victims did not have. He had a trained Sherpa sub begging him to descend. He had accurate time information. He had working oxygen when he could have turned back. He just chose not to use any of it. 3 years earlier, on May 15, 2006, a British climber named David Sharp made a decision that shows how hypoxia destroys judgment. Sharp was attempting Everest solo, without Sherpa support and without supplemental oxygen. He was 34 years old, an engineer who had climbed Everest twice before and had failed both times at 28,200 feet. This was his 3rd attempt, and he was determined not to fail again. But here is where his plan went wrong. Instead of following the standard southeast ridge route, he decided to bivouac, to spend the night, in a shallow alcove at 27,700 feet, known as Green Boots Cave. The cave was named for an Indian climber who died there in 1996. His body remained visible, still wearing distinctive green climbing boots. Sharp knew this. He was using a dead body as a landmark. At 3 a.m. on May 15, 2006, Sharp left his cave to attempt the summit. He was moving without oxygen, without radio contact, and without a support team. The temperature was minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. He reached the summit at 9:30 a.m., later than he had planned, but still with enough time to descend in daylight. A Turkish climbing team saw him at the top and even took a photo. Sharp appeared in the background of their summit shot, a tiny figure against the sky. Here is what happened next, and it is documented by multiple climbing teams. At 11:45 a.m., a New Zealand climber named Mark Inglis passed Sharp on the descent. Sharp was sitting in the snow at 28,200 feet, just 600 feet below the summit. He had been sitting there for over an hour. Inglis later testified that Sharp was in trouble, but he waved them past and said he was okay. He was not okay. Inglis and his team continued down. They had their own oxygen running low, and their own clients to manage. This is standard Everest protocol. You cannot rescue someone at 28,000 feet who will not help themselves. The altitude, the cold, and the exhaustion make rescue nearly impossible. At 2:30 p.m., another team passed Sharp. He was still sitting there, 3 hours now. His speech was slurred. He was asking for oxygen but also telling people to leave him alone. Contradictory behavior is a classic sign of severe hypoxia. Your brain knows you are in trouble but cannot process solutions. By 4:45 p.m., Sharp had not moved in 5 hours. A Sherpa named Dawa from a Hymex expedition reached him. Dawa tried to give Sharp oxygen and tried to get him standing. Sharp was semi-conscious, mumbling about being cold. Dawa spent 20 minutes trying to rouse him, but Sharp would not grip the rope, would not stand, would not help his own rescue. Eventually, Dawa had to leave him. After sunset at that altitude, helping Sharp meant dying with Sharp. Let that sink in. David Sharp sat at 28,200 feet for over 9 hours while approximately 40 climbers passed him. Some offered help, some gave him oxygen, but Sharp was too hypoxic to save himself. And at that altitude, no one can carry a full-grown man down a 60-degree ice slope. Here is the Darwin Award moment. Sharp's entire plan was flawed from the start. Sleeping at 27,700 feet without oxygen damages your brain before you even begin your summit push. Climbing solo meant no one was tracking his time or oxygen status, but the real mistake was that Sharp had climbed Everest twice before. He knew his body could not handle altitude without oxygen. He knew he had failed at 28,200 feet twice already. Yet he attempted the same route, the same style, expecting different results. The British coroner ruled Sharp's death as misadventure, a legal term for a death caused by risky actions. Sharp's mother later told The Guardian that he knew the risks and chose them. That is technically true, but Sharp also chose to ignore his own previous failures and his body's clear limits. He bet his life that a third time would be different, without changing a single variable. Sharp's body remained at Green Boots Cave for years, another landmark for climbers. In 2017, the Nepalese government finally removed it during a cleanup expedition. It took 8 Sherpas to move one frozen corpse, 200 meters down the mountain. Now, let's go back to where we started. May 10th, 1996. Rob Hall is one of the most experienced Everest guides alive. The 35-year-old New Zealander has summited Everest 5 times. He runs a company called Adventure Consultants, charging clients $65,000 each for guided expeditions. His safety record is perfect. No client has ever died on his watch. That record matters to Hall. It's his reputation, his livelihood, his identity. But May 10th, 1996 is not a normal day. 2 major expeditions are summiting simultaneously. Hall's Adventure Consultants team and Scott Fisher's Mountain Madness team, 33 climbers total, are all heading up the same route. The summit window is closing. It's now or wait another year. The pressure to reach the summit is intense. Hall's rules are strict. Turn around by 2 p.m. no matter where you are. The summit isn't worth your life. Every client knows this rule. It's in the contract they signed. This is the turnaround rule that defines his guides and his business. At 11:30 a.m., Hall reaches the summit with most of his clients, but two are still below. Doug Hansen, a 46-year-old postal worker from Washington State, and Harold Hank Tanskanen are moving slowly at 28,400 feet. Hall radios down to his base camp manager. He's going to wait at the South Summit for Hansen and Tanskanen. Just 30 minutes, he says. Then they'll all descend together. The decision to wait at the South Summit will matter, but 30 minutes becomes 2 hours. Hansen and Tanskanen aren't moving fast enough. At 1:45 p.m., base camp radios Hall. Weather is deteriorating. The storm everyone feared is building on the Tibet side. Hall needs to descend now. Hall sees the clouds. He knows what's coming. He tells Hansen and Tanskanen to turn around. The storm is arriving. Hansen refuses. This is his second attempt with Hall. He failed to summit the year before, turned around just 300 feet from the top because of Hall's 2 p.m. rule. Hall had promised him another shot. Hansen mortgaged his house for this expedition. Hall knows this. Hall feels responsible. He feels responsible for his client. At 2:30 p.m., Hall makes his choice. He tells Tanskanen to descend alone, which Tanskanen does, safely, but Hall stays with Hansen. They continue up. They reach the summit at 3:45 p.m., nearly 2 hours past Hall's own turnaround time. They take a photo. Hansen is smiling, holding an American flag. It's the last photo of him alive. The descent is where everything collapses. By 5 p.m., Hansen can't walk. His oxygen is empty. Hall is half carrying him down to the South Summit, a brutal 300-foot drop over technical terrain. At the South Summit, Hansen stops moving. He's used everything his body has. Hall radios base camp at 5:30 p.m. He says Hansen is unconscious. He says he can't get Hansen down alone. He needs help. This scene collapses into crisis, but help can't come. The storm hits at 6 p.m. Winds reach 100 miles per hour. Temperature drops to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chill. Visibility drops to 3 feet. Every other climber is fighting for their own survival. Scott Fisher, the leader of the other expedition, is dying at 27,900 feet. 3 clients are lost on the South Corner. No one can climb up to Hall in these conditions. The focus is survival. At 6:20 p.m., Hall radios that Hansen has died. Hall himself is now trapped. His oxygen is finished. His extremities are freezing, but he's still coherent, still making radio calls. His wife Jan is 7 months pregnant in New Zealand. Base camp patches through a satellite phone call. At 6:50 p.m., Hall talks to Jan. He tells her he loves her. He tells her the baby's name should be Sarah. He says he's in trouble, but he's comfortable. That's the last clear communication anyone has with Rob Hall. On May 11, 1996, at 2 a.m., a team tries to reach Hall. They get within 200 meters, but the storm drives them back. At 4 a.m., Hall's radio crackles on. He's barely audible, asking about the rescue team. Base camp tells him they can't reach him until the storm breaks. Hall acknowledges. Then silence. At 6:23 a.m., Hall makes his final radio call. He is hypothermic, hypoxic, dying. He says Harold was with me last night, but he doesn't look good. I'm not able to help. He radioed that he was in terrible circumstances, that he was dying. Then the radio went silent forever. Silent. Think about this sequence. Hall knew the 2 p.m. turnaround rule. He created it. He had enforced it for years. But when faced with a client who had paid $65,000, who had failed before, who had mortgaged his house, Hall broke his own rule. That decision killed 2 people. This is what makes it a Darwin Awards situation. Hall was not naive. He was not inexperienced. He was not unlucky. He made a calculated decision to prioritize a client's summit over both their lives. The weather forecast was available. The turnaround time was set. Hall had every piece of information needed to make the right choice. He simply chose wrong because he valued his perfect safety record and his client's satisfaction over survival. The 1996 disaster killed 8 people in 2 days, the deadliest season in Everest history at that time. It led to massive changes in how Everest is guided. Fixed turnaround times became non-negotiable. Weather forecasting improved. Guide-to-client ratios changed. Those changes came because Hall, one of the world's best mountaineers, demonstrated exactly what not to do. Rob Hall's body was found on May 23, 1996, still at the South Summit at 28,700 feet. Doug Hansen's body was never recovered. It is presumably somewhere in the ice below the South Summit, preserved in the position where he stopped breathing. Hall's ice axe, radio, and oxygen bottles are still up there, frozen in place, marking the spot where experience and judgment separated from survival. Found. 3 deaths, 3 completely different mistakes. Kumar died waiting in line for a summit photo. Sharp died trying the same failed approach 3 times. Hall died breaking his own rules for a client. They share something beyond bad decisions. They all had information, they all had warnings, they all had choices, and they all chose the summit over survival. Everest sits at 29,032 feet. The death zone starts at 26,000 feet. Above that line, your body is dying. Every minute you spend up there, you are using life you cannot get back. The mountain does not care about your mortgage, your photos, your reputation, or your promises. It only cares about physics and biology. In that environment, every wrong choice is your last choice. 310 people have died on Everest since 1922. Most died from avalanches, falls, or sudden weather. They died from bad luck or circumstances beyond their control, but some died because they made choices that guaranteed their deaths. They earned their Darwin Awards not through accidents, but through choices. That traffic jam photo from 2019 is still used in climbing courses as an example of what not to do. David Sharp's story is taught in mountaineering safety classes as a lesson in summit fever. Rob Hall's final radio calls are studied in leadership courses about decision-making under pressure. These deaths changed policy, changed training, changed how thousands of climbers approach Everest. They did not die meaninglessly. They did die preventably. That may be the most tragic part of all.